Morning, punters. Welcome back to the Punters Academy. Good morning, John Walter. Obviously reviewing the Rosehill meeting from Saturday. The inside lane seemed to be totally cast. Well, that was probably expected pre-race. The rails and run vote that you and I just spoke about also seems to be of late a bit cast too at Rosehill.
Yeah, just weird. Like, as I said, it was always difficult to run on from back and wide. Like we said, the track got a little bit of rain there on Saturday, but sort of 4, 5, 6. You usually want to save ground, and then even when it's in the true, get maybe 3 or 4 off. But at the moment, yeah, you're sort of sitting 2 or 3 wide is more important than anything in the run. It looks like, which is certainly not normal Rosehill. So obviously, this first 6 months of ordinary weather we've copped is playing its part in a few, changing the dynamic of a few of these tracks.
Yes, indeed. Let's get straight into the meeting. We've got the Highway in Race 1 there, the 1400 metre race. It was run at a solid tempo, and we saw some pretty good sectionals from a horse, or the winner, I should say, in terms of what it did overall. But bit of a bunch finish there. Half a dozen horses within 2 lengths. Maybe the winner's got something to offer in similar sort of races after coming from racing down south, southern New South Wales and Victoria. Roll tape, John, and we'll go through the race.
Yeah, it was a tricky one to sort of line them up. There was the horse that was kind of flying. It was Dream Game, and it was drawn wide, and it sort of sat outside leader first up, and then last time didn't quite go to plan, and they sort of had to ride it back and cut up the inside and won again, and unfortunately sort of just had to spend too much petrol getting to the front. And as we sort of worked out as the day went on, it was not really the ideal spot to be if you didn't navigate a path, pretty much straight to the middle of the track. So good ride, Balladon. It's back in the middle with cover, which turned out a nice spot. Cuts through the middle, gets to the right part of the track. No real excuses I could find for anything behind it. Rebels Edges Racing Wheels Daru, absolutely every chance. Thought probably the run of the race from a going forward perspective was Whispering Kate, who sits outside, a pretty solid tempo here, kicks away and stays towards the inside and gets run down. I thought it was probably the run of the race. Yeah, but as I said, not too many excuses. The horses that sort of rails in run were all pretty rough in the market, I thought, apart from Dream Game, who we've already talked about.
Yeah, not much to take out of it for me, other than maybe the winner and I suppose the horse you mentioned, Whispering Kate, and even Smoothest Breed to a lesser extent. But these are just average highway horses. Let's get on to race 2.
Flying V. I always hate the Flying V when they're coming like this. It's normally a pretty average sign, isn't it? But the time was okay, so it will it'll hold up in highway form, highway grade. Race 2.
Race 2. Let's get on to the 1578 as they're going to the gates there on the replay. Average tempo here, John. Let's walk through the small field. We saw Frumos and Hope in Your Heart, the 2 horses that had no luck at their previous runs, fight out the finish. And I think you might have had some sort of inkling for the winner too, didn't you?
I had some sort of inkling for the winner last start very, very heavily and didn't quite butter up, but I still couldn't understand the difference in price. It just seemed insanity. And unfortunately didn't bet with as much gusto, but a little bit out of the rack. But it was kind of a weird race on paper, tempo-wise and everything. Sort of was going to play against Frumos and Hope in Your Heart again, and it kind of worked out that way. But it just looks like it's a pretty poor race overall. These next couple of races kind of make more sense looking at them in review with getting the times and everything in hand, because it didn't look like they really put up spectacular performances and sort of big gaps and things open. I think it's a pretty worrying form race.
Yeah, you could be right there. I mean, Frumos has had a few chances now, and the market loves the horse. Started favourite every start, and look, it's obviously got some ability, but he's a bit of a get back type, and obviously you're taking short prices. Those types of animals, you're likely to have more bad luck than good luck, I suppose. I mean, in the small field though, you would have expected the favourite, if it was good enough to get past it. Air to Air sort of missed the kick hopelessly, and Nash was a kilo over it after it came from its Newcastle win. I think there was a few people sort of talking up that win a little bit, but it sort of maybe should have finished a bit closer. But is there anything else really?
No, it was a bit probably flattered there, wasn't it, at Newcastle, like tempo wise and everything. And I think you've probably seen it's got tricks. It's going to keep doing that. What worries me is that the two, you would assume that Frumos goes for a spell. I'd be amazed if they keep going back to the well with it. But sort of hope in your heart, I think she was just found the right race. Like they've literally had every possible, got to the right part. They've gone pretty slow up front, or steady up front and slowed down. There's no merit really in the last 400, 600 of the race. So I'd be just treating this. I wouldn't be saying like, as I said, the spruik on Frumos could be overplayed. It could rub off on hope in your heart next time it goes around like it's beaten a bit of a giant killer win, and it really isn't.
Yeah, okay, let's move on to the 2,000 metre race here to 78. Below average tempo here. They certainly slowed down a bit further, I suppose, by the time they got to the 600. Born a King did a good job, raced up, not too far off them, close to the speed, and put them away pretty convincingly. I don't know if there's much to talk about here. Maybe Rod Reno, there was some fair bit of mention about it in the stewards report after it sort of blundered badly on jumping and was injured during the run, so maybe totally forget that run. Head of State lost a plate. I mean, I was sort of expecting it to maybe race a little bit better than it did, but despite the $19 SP. But what are your thoughts here, John? Or how do you see the race?
Yeah, nothing like as you said, like they controlled the speed, didn't they, up front? And I think Dylan Gibbons showed a good level head to have the presence of mind to take off and take advantage of that and put him to the sword nice and early. Got the dream run, as we can see, sort of tracks the leader everywhere it goes, pulls around it and puts a gap on him, and that's pretty much the end of the race. Yeah, I don't think Rondino's a nice horse. Complete forgive, absolutely. Thought the leader here was really quite disappointing, but as we said, sort of inside maybe it was a bit tough to do. The rest of them pretty steady. There's a couple of them getting fit, like Corncrake and like Head of State, I guess, but the rest. What you see is what you get. The winner's definitely the best horse going out of it in another race that's pretty dicey, I would say, from a form point of view. You'd probably want this guy to go up in grade and down in the weight, so something like that to be dangerous. Well,
that last start run at Flemington was actually, there's a bit of merit there. Did race towards the inside, a few off the fence, but still that was in the worst ground. So I suppose, it was able to do a lot better yesterday, and I think up to the 2,000 metres, obviously yesterday suited it, which is where it's previously displayed its best form. Just on Rebel County there, John, it's pulled up slow to recover, maybe a forgive for it, because it had sort of put in two decent sort of figures prior to yesterday's event, but
I thought it would run better, so that does kind of make sense, especially with the control that it had up front.
Well, they're also saying, or Atkins said that the horse didn't run out the 2,000 metres, so that combined with the post-race slow to recover, forgive for it. Race 4, the Midway, the 72 Midway. There's a pretty bunch finish against here. 6 horses there and about 1.9 lengths, so maybe a bit questionable. What do you want to say about this race?
I hate these races. I don't know why they're on Saturdays. They do my head in. This horse is going very well for this sort of grade. It got Bowman, which is the first time it's had a really solid jockey aboard and got a bit of tempo on to suit it, and that was about it. I don't really. I saw a Boiler sort of see racing keen there, and there was a bit of stuff in the stewards report about it. It's probably a horse that I thought could line up in a Midway and race well. Maybe next time, it maybe need this run, but it was quite disappointing. Yeah, I think this is probably one of the races of the day we learnt the least about anything.
Diamond Diesel, total forgive. It fair mentioned a bit in the stewards report and got held up there and couldn't be fully tested. And I thought it was definitely worth forgiving it. Abulia, is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, that's at a Boiler or whatever the hell it's called, yeah.
Boiler, yeah. Pike said he didn't run out the 1300, and it had a post-race abnormal respiratory noise and also poor post-race recovery. So forgive for it, I suppose.
Was that the horse or was that Pike? Or do we answer that question later?
Maybe we answer that question later.
Yeah.
I thought Herd's run was actually okay there in that race, the 14.
Yeah, he's an interesting trainer, that fellow. He can get one going, and I thought it was sort of up against it and quite short of the market on Saturday, but did do okay back towards the inside there, and then Diamond, the thing you mentioned, was back on the inside as well. So definitely a complete forgive for Diamond Diesel. I agree with that.
Love and Chiller too. It finished off well enough too. It made plenty of ground the last furlong. But it was probably a little bit flattered there, that last 400 there. Certainly worst on the day. Let's move to race 5, the 1400 metre so-called benchmark 100, a bit weaker than that. But anyway, below average tempo. They did slow down a fair bit too by the time they got to the 600. So there was a big slowdown there between the 8 and the 6, about 4.5 lengths roughly.
Really weird.
So that, yeah, bit strange. True Detective there missed a kick, 3 or 4 lengths, and Arctic Thunder got completely poleaxed there late in the race, and I thought did a pretty good job.
Yeah, completely. That changed the dynamic of the race. This horse was very disappointing. I don't know if it just didn't handle the track. Wasn't in the right spot. Pretty average ride, but still went terribly. I'm not really sure what you can say about it. Grace and Harmony.
Yeah, they said it didn't handle the going, and yeah, what else do you say?
Angel, there's just no speed. There's just like when Purple Sector's leading up a race, you know that they're not going too quick, and it was nearly one of Nash has been riding pretty sleepy recently. I would have said, and I think this is one of his better rides. Nearly just completely stole the race. Just aggressively got to the middle. Nearly, as you said, nearly clocked off poor old. Who was it? Jason Collett. Absolutely.
Jason Collett, yeah. And
then he did the same to Reggie later in the day. He got a double holiday, Nash. There was a couple of brain snaps from him, but yeah, it's a weird. Nothing. I don't know what to do with this race. It's a little bit of a barrier trial. The winner's been well ridden. He was smart enough to put him into the race here. Got to the right spot and just sort of out-toughed him late. And it's just a bit of a glorified barrier trial. Alias went really well, I thought, from a future perspective. As you said, forgiving of this horse, True Detective, complete forgive, and I don't know what to do with Grace and Harmony, even though it was in the right spot. These Waller horses, second up, just do my head in. Off really nice runs first up, they seem to just often put in a really flat performance.
Yeah, a bit of a punter's graveyard, that Waller second up, but yes, for whatever reason.
And that's what you run into this horse, Alias, here, and you think, well, wherever it goes, they're just a perfect, slow run, sprint up run off a break, 98 days. This is the sort of shining light run that what do you do with it next start?
Purple Sector actually ran pretty well, really. I think it's a horse that's better on firmer ground myself, but be interesting to see what it does. I mean, it's 7-year-old now, so it's pretty much shown most of its aces, but it might be in for a decent prep and might pinch one. Who knows? Race 6. Let's get on to the 1178. Interestingly, the track on Saturday, I forgot to mention, I should say, dead track, so in the 5.2, 5.3 range, and against the official 6. But notably, the shoot races, being the 1100 metre races on the day, they were a lot faster. They race more like a good track. So interesting that to take that maybe going out that first section of the shoot was obviously a lot firmer. Anyway, let's talk about this race here. Mont Ditto, they went out below average early, and then probably average by the time they got to the 600.
Yeah, the start was probably all important, wasn't it? When Fire missed the start, completely changed I should say it changed probably the betting and the outcome of the race, didn't it? Like, it was probably expected to be in the first 3 or 4 as soon as it was last. I did get told it paraded quite proppy, like it looked a bit, I'm going to say sore. I'm definitely not a vet, but they said I was sort of given a heads up that the horse doesn't look like it parading like it normally does. And then when they miss the kick and do a few things like this horse did, that normally means a sign that there something wasn't 100% with it as well. So that takes a shine off the race. The time overall was fine. The winner just got the perfect run in it for the way the track was racing. And it's actually a bit of an underrated horse, isn't it? I think it's got the favours a few times now, but it's racing better than the SP suggests. Its last few starts, it just keeps getting away with these races at big odds.
Curtis Island bled both nostrils, so it's out now for 3 months. Look, I thought Quick Tempo got squeezed up a bit early after they jumped. I thought its run was pretty good there back on the inside, especially past and through the line, past the post. I think maybe back in distance could suit this horse too. Back to 1,000 metres, I think would be ideal for it.
Just driving you mad, this horse, isn't he? You can just see that he's bursting to win a race, and you'll put 5 on him one day and you go, oh my God. Yeah, but he's just, even in restricted room there, he's unlucky because if he sort of lobs that Monte Ditto spot and gets to the middle, you think he probably would have let down and been a different horse too. He's a bit punishing at the moment, Quick Tempo, but he's definitely going very well. And this is one, I always get these horses confused. Which one is this, Riverdale Brook or Riverdale something? It's the one back on the inside, Riverdale Soul. Was a bit of a forgive. Those horses definitely on the inside were at a disadvantage. Monte Ditto, all favours, but hard to knock it. Just probably had a few things go against the opposition, and it found the right spot.
Okay, on to race 7. I thought this race was okay. The 1578 average tempo here, John. I think both the winner and the second horse have done a good job. Only the second start for the winner here, who has improved. And the second horse, I think, it's had limited starts here in Australia. I think that was its forefront in Australia. And its first couple of runs were on very wet tracks, and it then got a firm track first up, and dead track obviously Saturday, and improved a lot, I thought, Mahogany.
If I told you it was the third and fourth leg and the last leg of 4 doubles for me at 80s, would that upset you as much as it upset me?
Probably upset you more.
Yeah, it's one of my horses, and there was a house difference for it putting its head out or not. But and I don't think we'll be getting 80s again next time. But he's definitely, it's typical David Payne. He's got a bunch of nice horses, but you just got to try and work out the day to back them. It's very hard to not back his horses when they're big prices, when you think they've got ability, because they can improve significantly without surprising. So again, they found the right lane, didn't they? These two. The tempo was okay for them, pretty steady, but so the performances were pretty good. I think what you see is what you got. Bowman gave Gracie Styler one of the Saw her backs. He's given one for a while. Thought she ran quite well. I think this form will hold up, like you're suggesting. I think Colino's like hard fit. That's as good as it can possibly go. But 1, 2, 3, so 1, 2, and 4 can all improve and run well. And even Kabosh, who missed the kick, it's back here. It missed the start. Yeah, and then sort of forced to. I was on it as well at 50s or something crazy. And then sort of tried to come wide, had to go back towards the inside a little bit more. I thought it ran quite well as well. I think this form will definitely stand up.
Your mate Tim says AC Express didn't handle the ground and didn't stretch out at all. Canasta was eased right down there for Bjorn, and I'd say it's a total forget run. He's now got to go to the trials, and we'll see what comes out of that. So total forget run it.
I think it really shows that how hard it was to lead there on the fence, whether it was wind or what, I'm not sure. But this horse is just like a mad dry tracker. I know it's got some form on softish ground, but like sticky ground it hates. And for it to put in such a poor performance for such an honest horse, I think it really shows that sort of leading on the inside there was tough on Saturday, and maybe something's looking down on it. There might have been something else wrong, but
she eased it right. She thought there was an issue with the action of the horse and eased it right down the last 300. So don't forget here, but as we've sort of spoken about, I think the winner and the second horse done a good job. Yep. On to race 8. The what is this? The up and coming, is it? I think.
Time honoured up and coming stakes. What the hell? This is not the what the hell race. The next race is the what the hell race.
Yeah, up and coming over 1,300 metres. Solid tempo here, John. Leader winner's done a pretty good job. Funny action there. He sort of wants to get its head right up there and in front, and it's done a good enough job, hasn't it?
He's green bugger, but he's got an engine. Holy heck! And he's just that typical perfect stable that he's found, the Gay Waterhouse stable for this sort of horse. Like, he can absorb a bit of pressure. He looks like he'll run a mile, I would say, and 1,400 definitely no problem. And it'll be hard to catch him around this track in a big race if he's allowed to sort of lead and dictate like this. I think the wide draws really help this horse. He's definitely raw still, which may play against him in the big races. But when you've got an engine like this and you can kick off a solid tempo the way he can, he's going to be hard to beat in a lot of races that he contests. But no real excuses. Golden Mile was good back to the inside. Thought it ran well.
He's done a really good job. Golden Mile, second start, not suited coming up from Melbourne. I thought it's definitely got a future. Basque was a kilo over for McDonald. What else do we say about the race? Not much.
They were kind of first up in that window. That was Caboose, probably ace up his sleeve that he'd had that 1,100 metre run, toughish sort of run up on speed, and he was allowed to dictate there. So he was definitely well set up to win this race, whereas Golden Mile had a bit more against it, and I think they were just clearly the two better runs. Maybe Ringmaster and back towards the inside a little bit of a forgive, but Golden Mile's towelled it. I think it needs to be finding easier races.
I suppose too, we can also mention, obviously Conqueror got scratched there pre-race after being fractious behind the gates. It was hard in the market, so it's now got to go and trial before it races again. Let's get on to the San Domenico, race 9.
A weird race.
Average early, and then they quickened up substantially by the time they got to the 600. Obviously, Jay McDonald, plenty of questions from him regarding tactics. Didn't end up where I expected it to be, and very heavily backed Best of Bordeaux. And look at I mentioned this on the show the other day, even though I've tipped this horse. These early 3-year-olds resuming, Jesus, especially when they're hard in the market, geez, you can do your money. Lot of results there out of the races in Sydney and Melbourne in 3-year-old races in recent weeks, with results a little bit hard to explain. I suppose Sweet Ride, though, did have a few runs under its belt and had previously shown some ability. So I think it went around.
Yes and no. Like the problem with this horse is that it kind of had 2 runs back where it had no excuses. So it had kind of exposed its level too. So you thought, well, this is what it last start. It looked like, oh well, it improved and it was really going to win. And then you went, okay, late it was Sweet Ride. It was a little bit weak and got found out. Whereas here it's not. It just bursts away from him. It's in
the form guide, this goes down as a 6.
Yeah,
I'm saying it was closer to a good track. And
that makes a little bit of sense, doesn't it?
Best form. It's best form. When you look at it, its previous runs were probably on close to that, good to maybe just then. So whether that had something to do with it or not, I don't know. But
you can see the way they're racing, like they're nowhere near that fence there. Not even the leaders are anywhere near the fence.
And that's contributed, right? That's contributed to
the time,
the fact that they did run better time, and and the fact that it appears
there's Nash again. What the heck was Nash doing there? That's just, what is he doing? He just completely deletes Reggie out of the race for no reason. I thought its run was huge, this horse, coming off a maiden at Canterbury, his Buenos Noches or whatever it's called. Like, bang.
Just interestingly in that race, Zuccarino, obviously jockey and trainer of Dollar and O'Shea said that they couldn't offer any explanation for the poor performance, but they did subsequently scope the horse back at the stable and found it had some debris from the track lodged in its respiratory system. So I think a forgive or a total forget run for it in the race.
If you're looking at Best of Bordeaux in isolation, I agree with you. The start, it got kind of squeezed out. I have looked at that on. Not a lot of intent there to go forward. Probably a different query. But if you're just looking at its run, I think it's definitely a horse that's more in the fold of Caboo, where it needs to be right up on speed and break the hearts of the horses behind it and use its cruising speed rather than try and sit and sprint here, just completely against it. And what I did like is that you sort of in restricted room here, this last little bit, he gets going again. And he gets going again through the line. So to me, he's a forgive as well. That's that Bonus Notches coming down the outside. But I really think this horse will be a different horse ridden up on speed over, an extra little bit of ground. 1,200, 1,400, I think will suit Best of Bordeaux. It'll be interesting to see when he goes up against, say, Kaboo over 1,400, what happens.
Okay, let's move on to race 10, last of the day, over 1,200 metres. Pretty solid tempo here, John, and we saw Shades of Rose, who actually had a breastplate fitted behind the gates. Whether it was actually behind the gates or not, I don't know, but they did say that the start was delayed, as Jay McDonald had a breastplate fitted with the approval of the stewards.
Which would have given heart attacks to people who took the shorts, because I think last time that happened was when Tim rode it and it put on the Rodeo Performance. It's a bit of a queer horse that holds its breath and does a few funny things behind the gate. So often the saddle can shift, and anyone who took the shorts would have been nice and scared. But quickly after the race, when it logged into a perfect spot and Mautai's got those earmuffs on and can't keep up, most backers would have been pretty happy with themselves.
Yeah, and, well, big new peak that it went up. Mautai, it got back a little bit further than expected. Didn't it? So what do we say about it?
I just think the earmuffs are the problem. It's hard to fathom what the difference it makes. You look at this horse like it's a fast horse, Mautai, and it can't keep up. I know they're trugging along here and a bit of a strange ride on the leader, but the winner hard fit. I think it can run further than 1,100 metres too. I'm not surprised it's a peak. To me, it's this sort of horse. It's a horse that can absorb a bit of pressure over. I wouldn't be surprised if it runs 1,400. What's it called? Shades of Rose. I just think Mautai needs the earmuffs removed.
Okay. Well, let's just cap this off, John, with some horses to follow. For me, I've got Arctic Thunder out of race 5. I've got the winner in the second horse, Waterford and Mahogany, out of race 7, and Golden Mile out of race 8. They're mine.
I'm with you. Golden Mile and Kaboo definitely can be followed there. I think Bonus Notches, I just worry that he'll follow the path of these same horses. If it went back in grade Bonus Notches to a listed race or something, I think it can run extremely well. Don't sack Best of Bordeaux. And I do believe that you found the right race to follow. I think Gracily Styler can be followed there. I think Kabosh is in for a good prep as well. I think Gracily Styler next start is the one, though, of the two. I'm so hung up on these goddamn Waller horses running very well off a break and then needing a little bit of time to actually find their real form. But, yeah.
Okay, let's get on to some questions. We've got limited questions this week. No question of the week as such, so we're going to jackpot till next week. So hopefully we'll get some more depth there in terms of the questions. And of course, after the questions that we'll cover now, we've got a separate segment with a special guest. Rob Waterhouse joins us, and we'll be talking about a number of different factors that I think punters and bookmakers alike are affected by, and certainly there's a bit of interest there, I think, from some of the viewers there. So that should be a good segment. So let's get on to the first one here. Les has asked, has William Pike's reputation been damaged or enhanced by riding more in the eastern states? Look, we've talked about W. Pike a lot. He was champion rider in Perth. There's obviously a difference between Perth and Sydney and Melbourne. He's got a lot of talent. I think his rides are fairly mixed. He can be brilliant and he can be ordinary. And ultimately, I think he's probably better off at the provincials at this point in time. That's just my view. What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm completely the same, really. Like, there's no personal attack on him at all. It's just an opinion-wise, I think he's a provincial-level rider. I don't think he can pull out a city ride of time, but I was sort of saying in reviewing meetings, whether he doesn't know the tracks here too well or he doesn't pay too much attention. I did listen to him, so not this meeting, the previous meeting when he won on Zougotcha. He'd ridden a lot of horses really poorly there in my, like just stayed on the inside, made no attempt to get off. The inside was absolutely cast that day, and he wins on Zugotcha after coming inside one horse off a really slow tempo. The horse went quite well, and he sort of got away with the race, and he's come back and said, oh, there's no issue on the inside. Sort of shows to me that he's either ignorant to it or, he's just not up to Sydney City level. So, yeah, absolutely no personal issue. Just watching him and watching the way he's riding horses, he really struggles to lead on horses. He struggles to hold hard-going horses. He often misses the start, gives them a dig, and then gets horses over racing and unbalanced. And I just think, yeah, I'm with you. He's more of a Newcastle jockey or than he is a City jockey.
Indeed. Now, our next question is from, who did I get that from? I can't think of who it is at the moment, so apologies for that. But the question is, hey guys, I've got a question in regards to weight. Look, I think it might be from Jamie. There are very many different opinions on weight and how it affects horses. I know Paul uses ratings, so the weight factor is pretty much built in, and it's compared to the weight for age scale. Well, actually, just to clarify there, my own scales, I do differ significantly in some areas of the scales. So that being said, but really the question's for you, John. He's interested in your approach in terms of how you deal with weight, and do you think a horse going up in weight has a bigger effect on a horse than going down in weight? He understands that you don't use ratings as the base of your analysis, but he's interested to get your thoughts on it.
I do and I don't. I just probably don't attach as much to it as other people, and I try and find different narratives and things to probably find a different edge over, what I think most people are using. I'm not saying generic, because your level of your information, how you assess it, how you can calculate it all makes a huge difference as well. But weight wise, huge effect. And for argument's sake, like a horse like Elation going to weight for age the other day, into a race where it should be getting 10 kilos off horses and isn't that I'm not like I'm insane, but I'm not insane enough to throw that kind of advantage by the wayside and not factor it in. So it does make a big difference. I don't think about weight a lot. I do think about positions in their where they're going to be and run, where they are at their stage of their preparation. So a horse that's going to close back in the field with a big weight, things against it, I'm definitely going to, if they add up, I'm going to penalise that horse more. So just in general, weights of a race, I do think about the weight they're carrying and where they're going to be and those sorts of things. But it's not, I don't really think about it a whole lot, so it's not a big factor for me. I do use base ratings like Paul's or whatever it is, so that's all factored in there, and then I kind of adjust from there more of my own feel of stage of preparation and stuff. So it's all kind of factored in. So I do use. Fair
enough. Okay, so next question is from Matthew. With the recent return of good horses, we're seeing that those horses who excelled through Sydney's Big Wet, and he's referring to Forbidden Love and most recently Best of Bordeaux, have failed in their returns to racing. Both were quite heavily supported in the market on their initial runs. Quoting two horses obviously isn't an adequate sample size, but is it safe to say that we can put a line through that Sydney form? And if not, how will you treat it moving forward? Look, I think that putting a line through form and making blanket statements like, pen job, this has got none, can't win, all those sorts of things, put a line through that form. I just think that there's no place for that. It's just, it comes from a position of laziness, of not wanting to dig deeper and do the necessary work. And I think everything has to be taken into context. Yes, there is obviously going to be certain horses that you could argue or fit a narrative to, like Forbidden Love, for example. But there were other factors there, weren't there, in terms of the way they trialled and maybe the suitability of the races that they were in first up, or Best of Bordeaux, let's face it, it was 240 into 190 or something. Heavily backed, things didn't go well for it. Okay, maybe it hasn't made the improvement, but you're right. It's a small sample size. What are your thoughts on this narrative of, putting a line through a big chunk of form just because, it was wet track form.
I would say, you wouldn't put a line through it. Treating it extra, warily at this point, absolutely. I think Forbidden Love and Best of Bordeaux are a good contrast because Forbidden Love, I think, was completely flattered by finding absolutely perfect conditions. It was in a rich vein of form where it just found races where it was on speed, controlling tempos, wet track, everything that could possibly go right for it, hard fit, going as well as it could. So it's come back. It didn't trial well, as you said, and looks to be racing a little bit tired. Whether it's not getting tracks to things and suit, I don't think are a factor on it, but I haven't looked deeply enough into the form sort of behind it. But it is a horse. I just don't think it's going well at all. Best of Bordeaux is just was a complete forgive for me the other day. So I'm less concerned about it as a horse, and the form around it is dicey. There's no doubt, but it was dicey at the time. There wasn't much around, was it? The 2-year-old form was not deep. You had a horse like Fireburn who was quite dominant, and She's Extreme, and the rest were pretty plain. So it's just all of that form, all that 3-year-old form's up in the air at the moment, and you just have to be, like you said, looking at trials, trying to get as much information as you can about them this time in, and worrying less about what they did last preparation.
Agree. Okay, last question for today is Passive Aggressive was Spruik. This is from Mike. By many on the weekend, even unbeatable in that race, and it's come up wanting. Done for this prep, or is there excuses? Now, look, the horse is really well backed. I did like it. I tipped it on the show the other day. I think I might have made mention of it being very short in price, and I would have had to have got a lot longer price to back it. That was the case. I didn't end up betting in the race. Look, it did do a fair bit of work to the 800 and ran about the 5th fastest sectional rating to the 200 that day. So I think that there was probably an excuse there. Look, not every favourite's going to win. I mean, obviously it was sent out at a fairly short quote, but they still get beaten. So I think you need to take the SP into context. It was very well fancied, beaten a little over 2.3 lengths. I wouldn't be bold enough to suggest that it was finished for the prep.
Yeah, it was a horse that was. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the right thing here. It was a horse that was 70 days between runs. It had trialled extremely well over 900 in between, but it was resuming at its maximum winning distance off a 70-day break. It half missed the start, booted through, set a solid tempo, as you mentioned, and only got beat 2 lengths. So, next time around, fit up, back to 1100, down the straight. Who knows where it's going to go? And it's obviously going to strip a little bit fitter too. It's pretty hard to be too disappointed in that performance. And I thought the winner went like a rocket. I thought the winner's a very good horse. So it's only got beaten a length out of second. Yeah, I'm not too disappointed in it. I definitely wouldn't be saying the horse is finished.
Okay, that's it, Punters, for this week. We're keeping it short and sharp. We've covered off the meeting, I think, fairly well. We'll be back on Thursday for some rapid fire for the weekend's racing, and of course back next Monday for the review of the Saturday meeting. We're going to finish off here now, and we'll be back shortly with a special feature with Rob Waterhouse answering our questions regarding bookmaking and in general, and some of the challenges faced and some of the differences between different jurisdictions that he's had the pleasure of having some experience in. So we'll cut that short now, and we'll see you soon.
No knock on Richie Irvine, but I'm actually fangirl excited for this one myself. So I'll be interested to see what Rob's got to say. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.